This is why feminine energy makes men fall deeply in love. But here's what you won't expect coming from a man. It has nothing to do with looks and nothing to do with sex. In fact, it has everything to do with what you can't see or touch. What's even crazier is without knowing this information, you'll never be able to truly make a man fall in love with you because you'll always be targeting the wrong places. So on today's show, we're gonna go over 10 points that cover in detail every aspect of feminine energy. So make sure you don't skip a single point because without all 10, you'll end up struggling to create a real bond and connection with the man of your dreams. Let's begin. For our first point, we're going to discuss how men learn themselves through you and falling in love with you. Now, I know that sounds kind of bad. Is he becoming a man through being with me? No, not really, but he does learn himself a lot. And here's why. See, when we're men, just left to our own devices, we find very specific things to do, and usually we only do those things. You know how men do, play video games, maybe a little bit of sports here and there, go to the gym every now and again, maybe go on a run every now and again. Now, when we meet you, the woman, the feminine woman with all this feminine energy, we actually get the opportunity to experience more things than what we would normally gravitate towards. This is actually an amazing concept because you, in your feminine energy, most women, they like to explore, they like to try new things. They just know more about things to do than the men do. And they're willing to try new things more than the men are because we like to stick to our very few finite things that we enjoy. In the process of meeting you with your feminine energy, we actually discover ourselves through the experiences that we have with you. So I've written a couple of these experiences down here. For example, taking care of your skin. A lot of men, I'm going to be honest with you, don't even know or understand the concept of a skincare routine until they meet a woman, okay? Going out to eat sushi, right? You can try different things, step out of your comfort zone. Horse riding is another example of stepping outside of your comfort zone, becoming more sensitive, becoming more aware of your own emotions, who you are as a person, building your identity of what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy in the process of exploring things and in the process of trying new things, right? Stargazing is another example of even something that you might not realize you enjoy so much. In the process of you being in this relationship, being around this feminine energy that encourages you to explore, that encourages you to try new things, that encourages you to go here and do things that you wouldn't regularly do as a man because a manly man only does manly man things. And you realize when you're out stargazing with your woman, you're like, wow, I really do enjoy this. Wow, this is an amazing experience. Wow, I would have never even bothered to try this or thought this was something I would have enjoyed if I wasn't with my woman. Number 2, choice. This is something that when I say it at first, you're going to be like, oh, this guy sounds like he just thinks that women should shut the F up, sit around, be quiet, and only speak when spoken to. That's not what I'm saying. I want you to really take in what I'm saying here because it's really powerful and it really will change the way men respond to you. Feminine energy understands that in order for men to feel like masculine men, they need to at least have the illusion of having choice, okay? Men need to feel like they have the space and they are encouraged to make decisions. Because when men are allowed to make decisions and they feel confident, which we're going to talk about confidence in a bit, and they're confident in the decisions that they make, that is when they feel like a man the most. Now, you might say, well, why is it my job to help him feel like a man? Why, I'm the woman. Do I got to do everything around here? No, but you have to understand, in playing your own role, you actually give space for your man to step into his role as well. So you can't always think of everything as, oh, I'm not speaking up, or I'm not saying anything, or I'm not telling him to do this or telling him to do that because I'm told that as a woman I have to shut up and just sit down. No. You have to understand that if I want my man to embody masculine traits, have masculine energy, it's also my job in my feminine energy to create an environment for that. And the women who understand that and have that magical feminine energy, they know that I need to give my man space to make choices. And I don't want to rob him of his ability to make choices. And I will continue allowing him to build his muscle memory as it relates to making choices. Because the more choices he makes, the better he becomes at making those choices. Now, in a relationship sense, those choices will be for himself. Those choices will also be for the relationship. But the reality of it is, when you're a feminine woman and you're embodying feminine energy and you're inspiring a masculine man, you end up benefiting from that, from creating that environment through your energy, from creating that environment through your spirit that allows him to be a more masculine man, that encourages him to make choices. And when he does that, he feels more like a man. And I promise you, one of the things that, if you don't take anything else from this show, one of the things that I want you to take from this show is that the more you make a man feel like a man, I promise you, he will fall in love with you. Because as weird as it sounds, there's only so many places a man can go where he can actually feel like the man. This is not pee, it's your magical fairy dust, okay? Now, you're gonna see me, in all seriousness, address the concept of magical fairy dust a lot throughout the show. When I say magical fairy dust, what I'm talking about is the runoff, okay? Or I guess we can say the residual of you having this feminine energy that is very magnetic and very attractive to both men and women, to be honest. But in this case, we're specifically talking about towards men, okay? When I say magical fairy dust in this scenario as it relates to his confidence, what I'm talking about is the runoff, the residuals of you being in your feminine energy is going to sprinkle your magical fairy dust all over him. In your feminine energy and with your magical fairy dust, you are going to help to build his own confidence within himself. Because the truth of the matter is, yes, I can feel like I'm a capable man and I'm strong and I'm powerful and I'm the best thing since sliced bread. But when my woman, the woman I care about, the woman I take care of, the woman I love, builds my confidence as well and reminds me how capable I am and reminds me how strong I am and reminds me how intelligent I am and reminds me that I can go out and I can make something out of nothing, now I feel like Superman. One of the easiest things to forget as women is how powerful you are in being able to make a man better than he is by himself, if that makes any sense. And I don't know how or why we were built this way, but let me put you in the mind of a man. If I'm on a mission for something and I'm struggling with it and it's difficult for me and I feel like I don't have anything left to give, but I think about my woman and I think about her encouragement and I think about her being by my side and I think about having to provide for her and I think about having to do the best I can for her. All of a sudden, the lack of energy I had when it was just me thinking about me, now all of a sudden I have this extra bit of energy, this extra bit of push, this extra level that I can go to, not because of me internally, but because of the external motivation and the confidence that my woman gives me to make me feel like Superman, that I can say, no, it's not done here. I can actually push through this. I can actually take another level because I know my woman's behind me. I know she's supporting me. I know she believes in me, and I'll be damned if I let her down. And I know maybe for you as a woman, you're like, damn, is it that serious? It is that serious. Men used to go to war. And when we're at war, we have our medallion. I don't have a chain on, right? They got their medallion and they're kissing their medallion with their woman's initials on it. Why do you think that's happening? Why do you think movies depict that? That's really what it's like to be in a man's mind and soul, right? If we want that extra push, we want to go to that extra level, we want to have that extra courage, that extra bravery, we take that confidence from our woman's magical fairy dust. The more magical fairy dust she has, subsequently the more feminine energy she has, the easier it is to draw from that fairy dust and use it to be that extra motivation for us, okay? For point number 4, we're going to discuss leadership. Now, once again, when I say this, I don't want you to take it the wrong way and assume that I'm saying, hey, feminine energy is for you to shut up, sit down, speak when spoken to, okay? That's not what I'm saying. What I want to say is that everyone has a specific role. I know that secretly, because I'm in your mind, me and you were besties, secretly, you really, really want not just to give off feminine energy, you also want your man to be in his masculine energy. I want that for you too. Because in his masculine energy, that's when he's going to protect you, provide for you, do all the things that you see and want in a man, okay? But you have to understand there's work to be done if you want your man to consistently be in his masculine energy, okay? It's not all just sit back, relax, and he's just there and it's just always gonna be like that, okay? What do I mean by that in this example? Leadership makes all of the difference. Because when we talk about a man feeling like a man, he needs to feel like a leader in his relationship. I'm just telling you the honest truth. If a man doesn't feel like a leader in his relationship, even if he's still in the relationship, he'll take a back seat, he'll become very passive, he'll become very feminine, you'll be very unattracted to him, and he'll also be very unattracted to himself because he won't even have confidence like a man should as a leader. I wrote this or drew this visual out because I want you to understand something. Let's just say you have an army, right? And in this army, every single person in the army wants to be a leader, wants to be the general, wants to be the head of the army. This concept doesn't really work how it's supposed to work. Because when everyone wants to be the leader, everyone wants to have control, everyone wants to make the decisions, no decisions get made. Nothing gets done. Because this person says, oh, well, I have the best idea. Then this person says, no, I have the best idea. Then this person says, no, let's do it that way. No, let's do it this way. No, I want to do this. Then no, I want to do that. And now I want to do that. Even though you think, well, okay, everyone deserves to be heard. Yes, everyone deserves to be heard. But there has to be one leader that executes on the decision so that the army can move forward. If everyone was making all the decisions, nothing would ever get done because they would stay in the phase of constantly debating what decisions should be made. And there would be no soldiers who are actually following or executing on the instructions in order for the whole team to be successful. In other words, there can only be one leader. And the other thing that must be recognized is that leader needs to be empowered by the rest of the group, okay? The rest of the group actually has the responsibility of empowering the leader before the leader can actually be a leader, okay? Are we on the same page so far? Because what you have to understand is if the group doesn't empower the leader to lead, well, then there's no recognition amongst all the soldiers that, okay, we are following our leader's instructions. We're going out and we're executing the mission based on what our leader advises us to do. Does that mean that the soldiers won't have a say in anything? Does that mean that the soldiers aren't important? Absolutely not. But in order for the hierarchy to work, in order for things to work, I'm talking about in the army, there needs to be an appointed leader and everyone needs to agree that that person is the leader, okay? So why do I say that? Am I saying you're the soldier? No, I'm not saying you're the soldier. But what I'm using this analogy for is to help you understand that you, in your feminine energy, are actually responsible for creating an environment that empowers the man to feel like a leader, that empowers a man to recognize that he is the leader of the relationship, to empower the man to recognize that your expectation of him in the relationship is that he will be a leader. And I know some of you are thinking, oh my God, I'm sweating. A man leading me, that sounds disgusting. I can't believe this stupid idiot of a YouTuber is on here talking about a man leading me as if I'm dumb, as if I don't have intelligence, as if I should just sit down and shut up. He has no idea what he's talking about. No man can lead me. No man can make a decision for me. I make all my... Okay, what I want you to understand is it's not about saying, I'm too stupid to make a decision. And this is where, I'll be honest with you, a lot of women mess up because they get so filled with rage. Excuse me, I went on a tangent there and my body filled up, okay? They get so filled with rage that a man would even want to be a leader in the relationship. And they feel like that's a slight on me and my intelligence and my ability. Because if he's gonna be a leader, what am I supposed to do? Just follow orders? No. You're still supposed to give your opinion. You're still supposed to advise. You're still supposed to give your perspective. You're still supposed to tell him, hey, I don't think we should do this because this might take us off of a cliff. You're still supposed to give your input. But at the same time, if you don't empower your man to be a leader, he won't take on the leadership role. And you want to know who ends up suffering when you're in a relationship and your man doesn't take on a leadership role? you suffer. Because you start asking questions and saying to yourself, well, I have to tell my man everything. Why do I always have to tell my man that I want to go out on a date? Why doesn't he just know? Why do I always have to ask my man for princess treatment? Why doesn't he just give it to me? Why do I always have to beg my man for every single little thing? It's like I'm taking care of a baby. I hate this so much. I know you hate it. And you should hate it. Because it puts you in your masculine energy. And it puts you in a place of anxiety. And it doesn't allow you to relax and receive as you want to be relaxing and receiving. But the only way for you to execute on that dream is for you to also create an environment in your feminine energy that allows and empowers your man to be a leader. This is why I say these types of things is what makes a man fall in love with you. Because I'll be super honest with you. I'm a man. I'm telling you the honest truth. A lot of women don't understand this concept. And they struggle with this concept because when they listen to other people talk, they think that this means that they should sit down, shut up, that they're useless, that they don't have any perspective or opinion or bring any value aside from sex. And it's not true. And if we're going to work together in our relationship, and I feel like a man around you, that's going to be a successful relationship. If I'm empowered to be a leader around you, that's going to be a successful relationship, assuming you enjoy being in your feminine energy, right? Because my disposition in my masculine energy is to be a leader, is to make good decisions, taking into account what your needs are, trying to take care of you, trying to do the best for you, right? That is supposed to be my disposition. But I can only do that, just like in this analogy, if the rest of the team recognizes that I am the leader and also empowers me to be the leader. So that when I make decisions or I'm thinking about what do you need, what's important to you, what's best for our relationship, right? And I say, okay, this is the step I think we need to take, and I begin taking action, we actually both benefit because you're with a man who understands how to take action and execute on plans, right, without you begging and asking. But also I'm happy because around you, I'm empowered to be a leader. I feel like a leader, and subsequently, I feel more like a man, which makes it that much easier to fall in love with you, the woman. You are sprinkling upon a man your magical fairy dust, your feminine energy, so to speak. And this can become very relaxing and calming, peaceful for a man in ways that you don't even realize how this is so good. Let me give you a real life story of my own so that you can understand why this is so powerful for us, okay? I was in the car one time with a woman that I was with at the time, and we were driving back home, okay, from a destination. And while we were in the car, I was talking about a situation that was really currently stressing me out, okay, that I was gonna have to deal with in the near future. And it was just giving me a lot of anxiety about what I was gonna do, what direction I was gonna go, what choice I was gonna make, all the problems that I was facing. And so as I was describing the situation, it was actually making me more stressed out in describing the situation. You ever been mad about something, then you're talking about it, and then it's just making you more mad? Yeah, that was me in the car that day or that night. So on the drive back, as I'm talking about this situation and the woman that I'm with is like sensing that it's giving me a lot of anxiety and I'm getting more and more stressed out, she didn't say a word. All she did was she took her hand, she's obviously in the passenger seat, she's a passenger princess, and she reached her hand behind my neck and the back of my head, and she just started rubbing the back of my head and the back of my neck. And I'm over here yelling. I'm driving, I'm not yelling, but like I'm upset. I'm passionate. I'm a passionate person. So I'm like, and this situation, and you can't believe what this person, and she just puts it on. I'm like, oh, yeah. And I'm like trying to talk about the situation because she's not saying anything. And I'm trying to talk about the situation while I'm driving. I'm like, yeah, and that guy, the way he did that, I didn't like it. Yeah. It was crazy. And I can just feel the stress and the anxiety just leaving my body. She's not saying anything the entire time. I'm still talking. I'm still yapping. But like the stress and the anxiety is just leaving my being, just slowly but surely. And by the time we got home, it was like a 30-minute drive. By the time we got home, I was literally like, yeah, I know exactly what I'll do. It's not a big deal. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll fix the situation and everything will be all good. Went to sleep. Everything was fine. And guess what? A couple of days, dealt with the situation. Situation was fine. There was no need to stress out about it, okay? Now, why do I give you that story? Because sometimes you have to understand, in being a woman, you don't even have to say or do much. Sometimes even just your presence, right, can be calming in just reminding us, hey, things are going to work out. You don't have to overstress yourself. Just be present. Just breathe. Just relax. You don't even have to say relax. You can just make gestures like putting your hand on the back of his neck, some guys it's rubbing their ear, some guys it's their neck, some guys it's back scratchers. Every guy is a little bit different. And you can create such a calming environment and presence in your feminine energy that it's like, trust me, when I was in that moment, I recognized that the only person that could have calmed me down like that was my woman. And when you create a very special bond and connection with a man, he'll also be able to recognize that like you're the only one that can really calm me down like that. And then once again, it becomes very hard to not be attached to someone who is able to bring you to a place where not even you can bring you to, right? When I'm stressed out and when I have anxiety and when I'm thinking about this situation and that situation, and I know my woman is the only one that can return me to a place of peace and relaxation and remind me to be present and remind me that everything is going to be okay without her even saying any of that, it creates an addiction, an emotional addiction to that woman, because where else am I going to get that, right? Something like that in the example that I gave, you can't even get that from a mother. In fact, mothers will stress you out more, okay, than anything, right? And that's where you have to be understanding of like, okay, as his woman, what are some of the things that I provide that literally no one else can provide in his life? And trust me, this is one of them, right? Your ability to calm your man down. This is something that I think women forget to allow men to do. And this is actually cool because I know some of you read your fantasy books. Some of you watch 365 Days on Netflix. Some of you love movies like The Notebook, or you like some hardcore stuff like smut books or things that go a little bit of, how they call it. Is it dark romance or dark fantasy romance books, novels? Yeah, I know some of you are into those, okay? So one of the elements of those books, movies, and novels that will be present a lot of times is a man admiring the woman that he meets for the first time or he sees across the room at a party or at an event, whatever the case may be. See, feminine energy is good at being admired because feminine energy is like self-sustaining, if that makes any sense. I always tell you guys that one of the really strange parts about attraction for men, especially for feminine women, is we are attracted to the women who are investing in themselves the most, which sounds kind of counterintuitive because you'd be thinking, wait, are men not attracted to the women who are doing the most for them? No, actually, ironically, we're the most unattracted to those women. We are attracted to women who are investing in themselves because, like I said earlier, when you're investing in yourself, now you're radiating. You know how people say, you're glowing. Oh my God, girl, you're glowing. Think about when people will say you're glowing the most, okay? Because let's really break this down to try and understand what's going on here. If any of you have ever been told by a friend, a girlfriend, a guy friend, whoever, a work colleague, you're glowing, right? When are the times where people will tell you that you're glowing? When you have been investing in yourself the most. If you start going to the gym, you start taking care of your skin, maybe you're doing a new routine, maybe you've been out in the sun a lot, maybe you've been relaxing a little more, getting better sleep, so you just have a better look overall, you have this aura to you, your presence is just a way lighter, way brighter, right? Every time you are investing in yourself, people will notice a glow about you. On the opposite end of the spectrum, think about when people will say, ooh, you look kind of rough. Ooh, you look like you've been drained. Ooh, you look mentally exhausted, right? That usually comes from when, instead of the energy going back to you and being invested to you, the energy is going outward into other people and for other people, for other things, to the point where you can no longer invest in yourself and now you look drained energetically. Now, why do I talk about this concept? Because if that's the case for you on a regular basis, well, then we have to recognize men are naturally going to admire, obviously, women with the glow. If Being and having this glow is part of being in your feminine energy. Well, then you have to be investing into yourself. Now, why does this make men fall in love with you? Because when we're able to admire you and admire that glow and admire that magical fairy dust that you sprinkle all over the place when you walk around, right? It communicates to us that confidence that she has that's creating this glow around her must come from somewhere. There's no way someone can walk around with that glow and that confidence unless she has real value. Now you create a scenario where the man has to come to the conclusion that the only way she can have this type of glow and this type of confidence is if she has real value. If she has real value, then subsequently, she's the type of woman that I desire and want to be with. Because what are men looking for when they're on the hunt for a woman, the hunt for a wife? They're on the hunt for a woman who is very desirable, very attractive, not just physically, but spiritually, mentally, emotionally, all that other stuff, right? So they want a woman who has the glow. They want a woman who has that confidence because they believe that that confidence is derived from the fact that that woman actually has real value. And they want to go for women with value. I know this sounds like a weird reason to fall in love with a woman because what is feminine energy doing for expression? But remember how I said at the beginning of the show that you and your feminine energy are actually helping men discover themselves? Yeah, this is another version of that. In your feminine energy, men don't grow up naturally with the ability or feeling like they can or should be expressing themselves. That's just the reality. A lot of times men grow up even hearing from other men that in order to be a man, you're not supposed to feel things. And even if you do feel things, you just move right ahead and push forward. Don't think about it. Don't feel it. Don't talk about it. Just go ahead and do. Take action. Okay? But it gets to a point where that becomes toxic because then they stop having, well, they never grow or develop the ability to express themselves. So even though they have emotions, they don't know how to connect to those emotions. So think about there being a wall between this man and these emotions. A lot of times men really only know how to connect with this emotion here, right? They can connect with being mad because that seems to be the only emotion that other men encourage them or think it's okay for them to feel. So that's the only emotion that they understand how to express. Now, being with a feminine woman in her feminine energy actually teaches us something very important, that there are a range of other emotions on the table. And it also, for the first time, I know this sounds very strange and weird, but I'm just telling you the truth. For the first time being with a truly feminine woman, we learn that it's okay to connect with all of these other emotions. And we also begin to understand what it means to feel these other emotions and understand how we react and respond ourselves when we feel these other emotions. I know it sounds very strange, but you have to think from the perspective of if I grew up for the longest time only feeling like I can feel one emotion, then all of my other emotions subsequently a lot of times get funneled into that one emotion. Okay? Meaning that when I feel anxiety, I just translate it to feeling mad. When I feel fear, I just translate it to feeling mad. Even when I feel disappointment, aside from happiness, okay, right? But even everything else, all of these other emotions like disappointment, right? Anxiety, scared, fear, right? Will all translate to me being mad because I rarely even understand how to feel any other emotions, okay? And now, when you're finally with the feminine women are a lot better at understanding their emotions, understanding how to process their emotions, but also helping to guide men into their own emotions and understanding their emotions and feeling them and knowing how to process them. Now I know some of you will say, stupid YouTuber. Are you trying to say I should be a man's therapist? I will never be a man's therapist. You must think I'm an idiot. I want you to understand something, okay? And I'm not trying to call you out. I'm just trying to help you understand something. In a relationship, we all have roles to play. As a woman, you have strengths and you have weaknesses. Just like men, We have strengths and we have weaknesses. The way we were made is that when we come together, we're able to fill in each other's strengths and weaknesses so that we can be more than the sum of our individual parts, okay? Meaning as a whole, we are much stronger and more capable than just being by ourselves alone with our own flaws. Do you get what I'm saying? So why do I say that as it relates to, I'm not gonna be a man's therapist? Because in your feminine energy, that is one of your superpowers, to be more in touch with your emotions, to understand the spiritual aspects of life and the things that go on within your spirit, within your life, within your mind, and to meet men and help them process and understand that and introduce them to that world that, hey, it's okay to feel disappointment, okay? You're not just angry all the time. Sometimes you feel anxiety. Sometimes you're scared. Sometimes you're in fear, okay? There's other emotions and things that you feel within you other than just being mad. And there's other ways to express those emotions other than just getting angry. And it's okay to talk about those emotions or to communicate how you feel this about that. And you feel this about this situation, right? And I know it sucks to be like, oh, well, do I have to build this man up? And why do I have to show him this? And why do I have to teach him this? We're all teaching each other things in a relationship. A good man should come into your life and teach you things about yourself as well and help you in aspects of your life in which you're weak as well. It's supposed to be an exchange. That's how it's meant to be. So when you're thinking to yourself, oh, well, I'm not going to be a man's therapist and I'm not going to help him with this and I'm not going to help him with that. Well, sure, go ahead. But you'll probably find it very difficult to connect with men because what they're supposed to be receiving from you in a good, healthy relationship, they're not receiving from you. And you want to know the irony of that, the super duper irony of that? And I'm not trying to be mean, but what I noticed in helping hundreds of women, the women who adopt that mentality that I'm not going to be a man's therapist, they usually end up with men who end up outsourcing that to another woman. Men with men, we love to hang out right here, right on the surface. Most men and men relationships. Why? It's a lot more comfortable, a lot more easygoing, less drama, and we don't have to talk about too much or make things too deep. And let me tell you how I know this is true. Well, obviously I know this is true because I'm a man, but let me tell you how you should know that this is true. Tell me in the chat, have you ever been with a guy and you're talking to this guy and, let's say you know some of his guy friends and you know something that might have happened to his guy friends, or maybe he mentioned something that happens to his guy friends. And he says something like, oh yeah, I guess apparently, John and Jenny, they got divorced or something like that. And you're like, wait, what? What? They got divorced? Oh my God. What? When did this happen? Oh, I guess John said that he said it happened like last week or something like that. So I can't remember exactly the timeline. Last week? Well, what happened in their relationship? When were they even gonna get a divorce? You never even told me nothing about them getting a divorce. When was this transpiring? And how did this come about? He said they were both having like affairs or something like that. I wasn't really listening when he said it. Something about an affair. Who was having the affair? I can't remember. We just kind of glossed over it and then we continued playing pool, right? And you might be wondering to yourself, you're like, how did you not sit down with this guy, have a 24-hour long conversation, getting through every detail, minute, point of everything that's transpired leading up until this point, and talk about this endlessly for hours? How was this not the topic of conversation the entire night? Because men with men hang out on the surface. Now, when we finally meet feminine women, we stop hanging out on the surface because we understand how to take more depth into our connections and into our relationships. A lot of times, as weird as this sounds, for men, the first time that they're really in love with a woman, like a good woman, is the first time any relationship that they've ever had ever even crosses this stage here, right? This threshold. Because maybe you might meet one or two people in your life or maybe a family member where you get to hear. But for the most part, men are never, ever getting into this area here. Never, never. And being with the right woman is actually the first time you're encouraged to even build a relationship that takes this amount of depth, which is a great thing. And it's an amazing thing. And it's one of the things that I want you to recognize, that when you are with a man and you're building a relationship with a man, that's one of the things that I want you paying attention to, is how deep do you go with this guy? Now, when I say deep, what do I mean? I'm not talking about sleeping together. I'm talking about going in deep in terms of understanding each other. Like, if you've ever experienced being really in love with someone, you see them differently. Like, there's a difference between seeing someone and seeing them. Like, I see your being. I see who you are. I see you for like what's inside of you. When I look at you, I see your aura. I see your essence. Do you get what I'm saying? And men will never go that deep. They will never reach that level of depth. But that's going to be majority of the relationships. But then when you're with the right woman creates an environment and encourages you to take that level of depth within yourself, like we talked about earlier, but also within your relationships. When you're a damsel in distress, you obviously inspire the most protective energy of men, right? And because obviously that in that scenario, then they get to do things for you, they get to save you, all that good stuff. Now, I'm not saying that you necessarily need to be a damsel in distress, but what I am wanting you to understand is within your feminine energy, you're going to inspire men to be protective over you. Now, here's where the real key comes in, because when you understand that part of getting a man to fall in love with you in your feminine energy is getting him and allowing him to be a protector over you, well, then you also want to recognize that you should be encouraging him and holding space for him. I think that's the term, holding space, right? Holding space for him and creating an environment in which he's allowed to feel and be protective over you. One of the things that I think a lot of women make the mistake of in this concept is when the man in his natural masculine energy becomes protective, sometimes women will be like, oh, well, you're insecure, so that's not protective, you're just trying to control me. Which in some cases, yeah, they're trying to control you, but in some cases, their natural desire to be protective over the woman that they care about comes out. But you also want to make sure that in your feminine energy that you're not discouraging that, because that is part of his process of being a masculine man in his masculine energy. So sometimes you have to recognize, while obviously you don't want to be in a controlling relationship, that your man in his natural state that you actually want him to be in is going to come across protective, even in ways that seem a little bit irrational or seem a little bit silly. But it's okay. In fact, if you can even encourage that, I'm not saying you encourage him to be controlling, but if you can encourage him to feel empowered in being protective over you, because it's okay that he's protective over you because you know that he just cares, you're actually empowering him to be in his masculine energy, which subsequently leads to what I was talking about before, which is men love to be able to feel like a man around you. And they also double and triple love being able to be around a woman who encourages them to be a man, because those things are natural to me. It's natural for me to care about a woman and be protective over her. So if I'm with a woman that embraces the fact that I'm protective over her, now I can be able to feel and act more like a man around her. I don't have to feel like being around that woman is making me fight my regular, already existing nature. When a woman is in her feminine energy, she becomes like home. She becomes the thing that he wants to return back to, that he wants to be around all the time. He loves it here, as the kids say, right? And nothing is better than this. Nothing is better than being in your bed. Snuggling up in your bed after a long day, your feet are so sore, you put your feet up on your bed and you're just laying there and you're just like, oh my God, I wouldn't rather be anywhere else than laying in this bed right now, right? Being able to be a man's home will really, really change the way that he approaches you and he approaches this relationship. Now, that really consists of everything that we talked about earlier, but when we implement all the stuff that we talked about earlier, that's when you really feel like a man's home, because all of the stuff I mentioned earlier is about making and providing so much value to a man's life in ways that he actually couldn't even do without you. The motivation, the inspiration, using you as a muse, being able to understand himself better, go in more depth within himself in his relationships, being able to express his emotions in ways that he never knew before, being able to step outside of his comfort zone, bring him to places that he never would have gone before, do things and try things that he never would have done before. You become such an invaluable part of a man's life that you are like home. And I'm telling you the honest to God truth.